Welcome to the Jersey Justice Podcast, featuring your hosts, attorneys Gerald Clark and Mark Morris.
All right, so Jack, let me ask you. So you're talking about like in our local agency here in Monmouth County, New Jersey, that one day there was maybe close to 100 rescues and so many lives are saved. Unfortunately, in one of our local towns, there was a drowning during hours where lifeguards were on. Is it? And talk a little bit about like when someone's at the beach, you're a parent. Like if you're at the beach as a parent and you got young kids running around, can the parent just go keep their face in their phone all day because the lifeguards are going to watch the kids? Like, how does that work? And are we necessarily like guarantors? Like what level of responsibility do people that go to the beach have for their own safety to be within their limits? And when you have, say, 2 lifeguards on a stand watching a swimming area that could have hundreds of people, the lifeguards can only do what they can do, right? I mean, they're not expected to 100% guarantee that no one's going to drown in a swimming area. Can you talk about those things a little bit?
Yeah, lots to unpack there.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
like when you go to the beach and buy a beach badge, is the town guaranteeing to you that you will not drown in front of any lifeguards? I mean, I think the obvious answer is no, but can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
Because it seems to me that, you know, like Forrest Gump said in the movie, like shit happens or whatever. You know,
you're going to use a different Forrest Gump.
But you could have the most diligent lifeguards sitting there watching hundreds of people in the water. But eventually, it's, you know, someone's going to drown at some point at some place in a guarded beach. Can you talk about these things a little bit?
Sure, I'd love to. I'm very opinionated on it. I might actually disagree with you on this. I think that, and this is something I'm very passionate about, if you are traveling to a beach that is guarded by lifeguards, I think there is a level of expectation there that you will not drown. Period. End of story. And I think that's how that's the standard we need to train our people to. And I'm very passionate about that. Now,
what if there's some medical emergency or there's hundreds of people?
There's exceptions, a medical emergency, maybe an epileptic episode. You know, they have a seizure or syncopal episode. They just pass out, or a sudden cardiac arrest. Like, sure, like we can poke holes in that. But, you know, speaking broadly and making that generalization, I do believe that if you are traveling to a beach that is protected by lifeguards, there's an expectation that you will not drown and they will keep you safe. Period. End of story. And I will stand by that fact.
All right. So when the waves get up, why don't we just close the water?
Yeah, I mean, that's so
and why? Because someone died on the Parkway last week. Why don't we just shut down the road?
Yeah.
You know?
So
or
I think
people die on e-bikes. So why don't we just ban e-bikes?
Yeah, I think my statement isn't like a blanket statement for every single situation we might encounter, right?
Yeah.
When you have that big hurricane surf and you do sort of like modify the rules on the beach as lifeguards, I think it's worth the conversation. I don't have like a really passionate standpoint like I do on going to a guarded beach. I think we do have, a flag system, and we take a look at water conditions and we will regulate that accordingly. If you're an experienced surfer who surfs year round and it's like a massive hurricane swell day, I think that you should be allowed to surf. But I think that expectation still exists, we're not going to let in bathers, and if you're not experienced, we're going to throw you out of the water that day. But if you're a really experienced surfer and something sudden and tragic and unexpected happens to you on a guarded beach when it is that 8 to 10 foot day where only surfing is allowed, yeah, I mean, there's an expectation that the lifeguards are going to go save you.
But, certainly if they see someone's in trouble, they'll go save them. But like, if you have 2 lifeguards or even 3 lifeguards, I mean, I remember there was a situation in Bradley Beach years ago when I was a child. I don't even remember it. It's just a story I heard. Is the lifeguard went out there, and there was 4 victims, and they could only save 2 or 3. You know what I mean? Like, there was a situation in Puerto Rico, unguarded beach, where the dad and 2 kids went in the water. They're walking on this beautiful tropical beach, and the turquoise water looks so inviting. They go in. There aren't even waves.
Mm-hmm.
sometimes and we'll talk about this, but sometimes the most dangerous situations aren't where the waves are big. It's where it looks tranquil and they have these rip currents moving. But anyway, the dad and the two kids go in Puerto Rico, in this tropical area, beautiful stuff. There aren't even waves, and they just get pulled out over their head. And then the guy that sells coconuts, who is a former military person, went out and saved him, and he saved, I think, the kid and the dad, or the two kids but not the dad, and did CPR on one of them and stuff. I mean, there's situations. What I'm saying is, if you have 2 or 3 lifeguards guarding an area and there's, say, 50 people in there, sometimes you'll get a washout, where a sandbar breaks or a rip opens up, and now you suddenly have 10 people in trouble and you only have 2 or 3 lifeguards. Anyway.
But your point, I guess, is that you should have a system in place. If you're picturing, you have guys bumping down from other beaches, that you're saying in a perfect world.
What if the beach they bump down from has the same situation? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so you're throwing in like the variables of this worst case scenario, and Jack, you're looking at it from like this idealistic, in a perfect world, this will never happen.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the reality is it's somewhere in between.
See, my whole point is, Jack, my point is, you like to snowboard, right?
Sure.
You've been snowboarded out west, and when you snowboard out west, you get the powder days, and I never realized this. I always skied on the East Coast, and recently I've been out west. But they have these tree holes where you can fall in them and drown in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say we get a big powder day. Why don't we just shut down Jackson Hole Mountain? Because then no one will die.
Yeah,
that's my point.
I think we're comparing apples and oranges a little bit.
Yeah,
lifeguarding is 98% preventative. So I think the argument you're making is
but you can prevent it by shutting down the beach or shutting the mountain.
Correct.
Or closing the Garden State Parkway, or banning e-bikes, and then we won't have any deaths on the Parkway. We won't have any e-bike deaths. We won't have any deaths on Jackson Hole Mountain, and no one will drown in the ocean, and then we can all be safe and hang out in our houses on our cell phones.
Yeah, so this is and this kind of goes across every discipline I'm part of, because we can beat safety to death, especially in the fire service. It is painful.
Yeah,
how much we beat safety to death.
And sometimes I find people or officials, that get on a power trip or feel like flexing power for power's sake,
mm-hmm.
will justify it by safety.
Sure, yeah, it's because it's such a catch-all, right? It's so easy to do. So I'm a firm believer in do not avoid risk for the sake of safety. Be really good at mitigating it as it comes. That's kind of my philosophy on the fire side. And on a personal level, I'm a firm believer in providing people all the facts and allowing them to make an educated decision based on how they know themselves and what you explain to them. Now that's not applying to lifeguarding in the ocean. That's just how, me personally, my morals, I think how we should treat every situation. But as far as the ocean goes, I don't think you're going to get me to kind of change my stance on that.
Right.
I think lifeguards are well within their right to close off the water if it's not safe, et cetera, et cetera. But I feel like that happens very rarely. And I don't run a beach, right? I don't have the luxury of making these decisions. And
right.
I do not envy the people who do, because I feel like they're extremely difficult decisions to make, because we can sit here on a podcast and talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's 8:30 in the morning and the ocean's macking and it's a beautiful Saturday summer day, you need to make this decision in 30 seconds to a minute. How are we going to handle the beach today? So you don't have the luxury as the person having to make they don't have the luxury that we have now to discuss this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's one catch-all answer. I think it's super situation dependent.
It's very philosophical.
It's
a philosophical thing. It's between, it's do you want the government to take care of you from cradle to grave,
mm-hmm.
or do you want more freedom, so to speak?
With the risks that come with it.
Yeah, it's risk reward. I surf in Puerto Rico, and we were out there 2 years ago, and I took 2 20-foot waves on the head,
mm-hmm.
2 of them. I was sitting in the lineup, and I look out, and this enormous wave comes, and I was like, there's no way I could paddle out, and I said, and I just, literally a 20-foot wave broke on my head, and I ducked over as deep as I could. It's beyond scared. I was beyond scared. There's no lifeguards. No one's coming out on a jet ski to get me. And I basically said to myself, I was like, you better get your shit together. You're going to die, motherfucker. That's literally my voice was saying that to me. And I duck dove as deep as I could. I relaxed as much as I could, and I held onto that board, and I got turned over a few times and popped up to a second 20-foot wave coming at me, and did the same thing, and I was fine. And it's so beautiful, and it's so fun surfing waves like that. But I know that there's a risk that comes with it, and I don't want any government or government official to tell me I can't do that. So it's sort of like it's sort of like a philosophical thing.
But you think about your personal experiences,
Yeah,
and you and I both, and Mark as well. You know, we have developed that respect for the ocean, and we're around it so often that we are, you know, continuously humbled by it and reminded of why we should respect it. So for Jack Gramlich or Jerry Clark to go down to the beach and say, well, who are you to tell me that I can't go in the ocean?
yeah,
I think that carries a little bit more weight coming from me or you versus somebody who's, you know, here for the day. I think we do have an obligation to kind of look out for that person at times and say, you know what, I can describe to you water conditions all day, but you are never going to understand the words coming out of my mouth. And in that case, maybe we do have the right to tell that person you are not permitted in the ocean today.
Do we though?
I don't know. That's why I said maybe. Maybe we do.
This is a blue state, red state thing. It really is.
But then I'm in charge of the beach, and you two guys are my lifeguards on the stand that day.
Yeah.
And I tell that family of 5 everything, but I can't keep them out of the water, but I give them every ounce of information I possibly can to discourage them to do so, and they still choose to go in the water. Now, like, you guys are inevitably going to have to put your own lives at risk to go try and save these people, and me as your supervisor, you know, that's on me now.
Yeah.
So
it is a little weird.
I don't have the answer.
Yeah, I know. It is a little weird though on some days when the lifeguards are sitting there for the sole purpose of keeping people out of the water. You know, like, and when it would cause friction is when those people they're keeping out of the water are surfers. You know, because surfers have leashes, surfers are more experienced. Generally speaking, obviously these are generalities. You know, and that's kicking Jack Gramlich off Jackson Hole Mountain in a chest powder day because we don't want him to drown in a tree hole. You know what I mean?
But again,
like, reactive
discipline. Ski Patrol is going to respond to an emergency. They're not there preventing it. They do close trails if they're unsafe. You know, tree holes are an exception. Or tree well that'll open up on a powder day. It's just, my point is, it's kind of apples and oranges a little bit. I don't know if it's a fair comparison.
Yeah,
and that kind of goes across all boards. One of the things I like about lifeguarding is it's majority preventative action. You can't say that about most of the emergency services where we are reactive entities. You know,
but the
firemen
ultimate
wait for the
prevention
fire.
is to shut it down.
It is.
So where is the line? Where is that happy medium?
I think that's a day-to-day decision-making process that the leadership makes.
Like in California, they don't do that, right? Like in California, when we were there, like they don't even have red flags in Jersey, in our area. Red flags mean can't swim there. Yellow flags mean you can swim, but be careful. Or in some places it's stay up to your waist, or you need fins. And then green flags is like open season, you can swim. But in California, they don't have such a flag system as far as I could tell. Right?
I genuinely do not know.
I don't think they did when I was there.
And like they don't shut their beaches down, even if it's a huge
I don't
day?
think so. I don't think so, because when we were there, there was 8 to 12 foot faces, and there was no flags, and there was no limitations. The swimmers were in there, and you know, so there's different philosophies, I guess.
Yeah, I think we do kind of share the philosophy as far as flagging the beach and allowing swimmers in. I think we're lucky to work for a beach patrol that, when a lot of other beaches are red flagged, keeping swimmers out, we recognize that there is that expectation that people can come to the beach, jump in the water, and still be safe, and that's what we're there to do as lifeguards.
Yes.
So, you know, I like that. That's kind of the mentality where we are. But I can't speak for every beach, because there's a lot of beaches that red flag when.
It threw me off, because the beach I go to now is one beach north of the beach that you guys lifeguard at and that I always worked at, you know, for a decade or so. And they red flag, and I'm like, what? We're red, like, you mean red flag? Red flag? I'm like, yeah, red flag. No one can go in. And I get it, but it's just crazy that on the beach by beach within, 3 square miles of each other, that there can be such different decisions that get made.
Yeah.
All right, so these decisions we're talking about are basically from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So talk about, in July and August, the beach closes, generally speaking, at 6 o'clock, but it's beautiful out until 9 o'clock. It can be light out until 9 o'clock, and there's a bunch of people down there. Tell us about that and what your experience has been with that. What the concerns are, what the dilemma is, how it's handled,
Sure.
and your personal experiences about that, and what you've been involved in terms of preventative action and after hours response stuff. We talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're not talking about beach badges today, are we?
No.
Because the one thing you said is, hey, I'm a lifeguard. I'm sitting on the lifeguard stand, and some dude comes up to me and says, how dare you tell me I can't go in the water today?
Mm-hmm.
I've certainly had that before.
Sure.
And we say, well, sir, you can go in the water, but you need fins. Well, how dare you tell me I need fins to go in the water today? Now, there's also some people that have said, how dare you tell me I need a beach badge to go on the beach today? You know, that's been a thing, but we're not going there. But it is somewhat related to the after hours issue, that is people going on the beach after the badge checkers leave, because perhaps they can't afford to pay for their family to go to the beach in New Jersey from the hours of 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So they're swimming after hours where they don't need badges, and the beaches are unguarded. But
Yeah.
lot to
Huge
unpack
problem.
there too, right?
Yeah, huge issue. So for the listeners who aren't really familiar, in a lot of places in New Jersey, especially where we are on the beach, you have lifeguards on the beach, let's say 9 to 5. And then after 5 p.m., there's no lifeguards, and before 9 a.m., there's no lifeguards. Now, that's going to come as a surprise to a lot of people, because I'd say a fair majority of the country has figured out some level of lifeguarding and protection on the beach from sun up to sundown, if not 24/7. So we might be unique in that sense. And all that being said, you kind of create a recipe for disaster with that. So you have all your staff there from, let's say, 9 to 5. And again, we're talking about a handful of towns in this area. You have all your staff there from 9 to 5. Nothing outside of those hours. You also have badge checkers on, say 9 to 5. And in New Jersey, we can debate the morals of this. You guys have. There's a great podcast on it that you guys did, and I genuinely mean that. It was a really, really great listen.
Thank you.
But after 5 p.m., the badge checkers leave, and you can get on the beach for free, but there's no lifeguards. So what you have is people of a lesser socioeconomic status that maybe couldn't afford to get on the beach to pay the $10 per member of their family, that now they wait till they leave, they go on the beach. Unfortunately, and I mean, you can have on way smarter people than me to talk about this, but people of that lower socioeconomic status are less likely to be able to swim. There are statistics that back this up.
And don't recognize the risks of the ocean.
They don't recognize the risks of the ocean. They're not as skilled in the water, and there's no one there to take that preventative action and tell them it's not safe, or that safety blanket of, if you get in trouble, I'll rescue you. And so, yeah, I mean, we see a huge number of both fatal and non-fatal drownings in this area between the hours of, say, 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. when lifeguards leave the beach and they choose to go in the water. Now, I have a lot of opinions on this, starting with I do think that there are a million different ways that we can provide some level of lifeguarding on the beach during those hours. I'm not saying fully staff your beach. I'm saying keep some lifeguards there, maybe in a reactive only element, or maybe they're not going to take as much preventative action as they would when they were fully staffed, but we can still have lifeguards on the beach to take some preventative action. Now, I've been told, and I've made these pushes both officially and unofficially in this area. I've been told that there is a liability concern, that when you have, whether it's one lifeguard or 100 lifeguards on your beach, you're responsible for safety and you can be held liable if something happens. If you say you have no lifeguards on the beach, then you're no longer liable for something that might happen. And that's extremely frustrating to me, because I do believe that there should be, rightfully so, there is and should be an expectation of safety when you choose to go to the beach and recreate and enjoy the beach. I don't think that just because you're of a lesser socioeconomic status, you should have to wait until the end of the day and put your life at risk just because you want to enjoy the beach. You know, we take this for granted, or a lot of people take this for granted. We grew up around here. We go every day. We take a walk. It's a big deal to go to the beach for some people
that don't live near here.
That don't live near here, right?
Yeah.
So yes, I think they are right to expect to be safe if they choose to go to the beach and jump in the water. And I think it's really unfair for a municipality who's backed by an insurance company and whatever else to put more emphasis on whatever money they might lose if someone drowns, and compare that to the value of a human life. Especially when you can take some very easy steps to prevent this drowning in the first place.
Yeah.
Additionally, I don't think that you hear it much from this standpoint, but like, we had a drowning here recently, and I'm like so upset by the fact that there was so much victim shaming.
Yeah.
The overall consensus when there's been a fatal drowning in this area is, well, they should know better.
Do you want
no lifeguards were on duty.
Do you want to tell the story about it from what you were involved in?
I've worked a lot of fatal drownings
in
our area, so I don't want to highlight any one in particular.
Right.
They all share a lot of similarities. So I'll speak broadly about the subject. But it seems like time and time again when we do experience one of these fatal drownings where they choose to swim on a beach that's not lifeguarded, the overall consensus by locals especially is, well, they should know better. They should know not to swim there. They should know not to swim when lifeguards are off duty. They should have recognized that the ocean was dangerous that night. How? Why?
Yeah.
Just because they didn't grow up here. They don't know the ocean.
Right.
Why would we expect that of them?
Yeah.
And how are you going to sit here and say that it's like, a lot of times it's kids. Like, how are you going to say it's their fault? Like that. And that's why I say, like, there should be, like, they're not wrong for thinking they can go to the beach and be safe. So what can we do as lifeguards and as municipalities and as leaders in public safety to prevent that from happening? I'm not saying fully staff the beach, but
is the answer to close the beach though and shut it down after 6 o'clock?
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so, because I think there are efficient, reasonable ways that we can provide some form of protection and lifeguarding on the beach after hours to prevent these incidents from happening.
Yeah. I mean, the ocean, and I've said this before, in my opinion, it's almost like a spiritual thing. Like going in the water, it's like cleansing, like Jesus, John the Baptist baptized with water and cleansed the spirit and everything. And I think there's a real thing about that. And what's great about the beach and lifeguarding at the beach is people are generally in very good moods. They're on vacation. Mm-hmm. They're going in and out of the water. They just got refreshed. And I think to deny that to people in the name of, safety, I think would probably be worse than kicking Jack Gramlich off Jackson Hole Mountain on a perfect powder day because they don't want him to drown in a tree hole, Mm-hmm. So.
And let's look at it from another perspective, right? So obviously we have our victims and these like poor families that have suffered drownings, but
you don't want to talk about any particular one in any particular drowning that you've responded to, but can you just talk generally, like what happens? A call comes in.
Yeah, it's exactly where I was going to go with
this. Tell us what you see, what happens, what's supposed to happen.
Or what system is in place for something like that happens after hours.
Yeah, so this is really common in our area. Jerry, you and I are obviously on a regional after-hours water rescue team, right? So there's a number of towns that we respond to when lifeguards go off duty and there's no lifeguards on the beach. Someone places a 911 call for some sort of swimmer in distress, and it activates this team.
And how does that happen? Who's placing the call, and how do they know?
So it's a great question because you don't have lifeguards or trained professionals.
Yeah, just so people know, one of the biggest challenges of lifeguarding as a lifeguard is to determine whether or not a swimmer's in trouble a lot. Mm-hmm. You could have someone who's out in the swimming area doing this, and for anyone listening on Spotify, I'm waving my arm, and a lifeguard could misconstrue that as they're waving for help, but they could just be waving to their mom. Mm-hmm. Or, there's different signs that you look for to see if there's a victim is drowning. So, for example, if their hair is like over their eyes and they can't move the hair back, that could be because they're struggling. So, and that's one of the biggest challenges for lifeguards is to determine because you don't want to look dumb and go in after someone and shove a twerp in their face and they say, "What are you doing? Get out of here. I'm fine." And on the other hand, so who's seeing this? And
so as lifeguards, we get really good at recognizing when people are in distress. Oftentimes we recognize it before they might. So in an after-hour situation when lifeguards have gone off duty, you're relying on a layperson with no professional training or experience to recognize that someone's in distress, which means they're probably well beyond distress swimmer at that point. I mean, we're talking like actual panicked drowning victim most of the time.
Or yelling for help.
Or yelling for help.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they place a 911 call, and now you have your members of this team, mostly off-duty lifeguards, but, law enforcement, firemen, a lot of people are trained in water rescue. They're not putting themselves at risk to drive from their home or wherever they are in their personal vehicle to the beach, running down the beach and trying to make this rescue in a reasonable amount of time. And it just puts you at such a disadvantage. I mean, it's really difficult to make a good rescue when you're that far behind the 8 ball. And now these guards are great. I mean, we really only take the best of the best and put them on these after-hours teams. They're usually, guards a couple years older, a couple years of experience, a lot of specialized certifications, live locally. So there's you're getting the right people on the team. But no matter how good of a lifeguard they are, the fact that you're waiting for layperson to recognize it, place the 911 call, dispatch the team, drive to the scene, all the while we could have circumvented all of that by having a few lifeguards there and just making the rescue and going about their day, or taking a preventative action that would have prevented the rescue from happening in the first place.
Because time in these things obviously is the most important factor, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The difference between a couple minutes is,
yeah,
someone fighting and someone being underwater.
Mm-hmm. Now, selfishly, you and I are both adrenaline junkies, and we've been doing the after hours water rescues for a long time. The most memorable rescues I've had, the most critical rescues I've had, are definitely in those after hours time frames where no preventative action has been taken and it became kind of a large scale incident before you were able to prevent it. So, if we were sitting here swapping war stories, majority of mine would probably come from off duty as opposed to on duty rescues.
Yeah, people do want to hear the war stories, though, Jack.
I remember there was a time we were supposed to meet me and another friend for dinner, and we're sitting outside at this one restaurant. I think it was along the equivalent of Ocean Ave in this one town. And all of a sudden we hear all these sirens, all this stuff going on. Unfortunately, a boat had crashed in the inlet. And we just see your truck whip by, siren going. We go, all right, I guess Jack's not coming to dinner. We didn't know the extent of it at the time, but that was a pretty...
Yeah. And then our friend texted me and said, I'm sick of always playing second fiddle to maritime emergencies.
That's funny. So put the listener in there, in the beach with you, next to you, just in a typical thing that you see. The call comes in, you run down. What do you see? What do you do? In no particular situation, but just generally, like how does this evolve?
So more often than not, when you have these after-hours rescues where there were no lifeguards on scene, instead of calling 911, the first people who recognize there's an emergency very often will try to make a rescue themselves.
Okay.
And when you're not trained, you are very likely to become a victim yourself.
Right.
So more often than not, I would say a vast majority of the time we get these after-hours calls, you're talking about multiple victims. They've already been in distress for a long time, like maybe struggling to stay afloat, semi-conscious, suffering from some sort of like medical element now from having inhaled or ingested water.
Yeah.
So, it gets really dramatic really fast. So recently, this isn't really applicable to just your regular swimmer in distress, but like Mark, the incident you're talking about, that was during hurricane swell in September. And a boat was trying to navigate an inlet to come in and dock. And they took a massive outside set wave as they were trying to come into the inlet. The boat crashed into the inlet, and we successfully rescued 2 of the occupants on board, but unfortunately the third was a fatal drowning. And so that was, that's taxing, responding to that scene. Obviously a huge response now. You're talking about like an actual like maritime accident, not just a swimmer in distress. But so huge scene. We were able to pull 2 of the victims out of the inlet with throw bags, like got them just in time. And and then unfortunately the third was a massive search effort for probably like 2 days before we were able to recover that third victim.
You've been on these scenes and actually seen the drowning bodies or people that didn't make it?
Yeah.
I mean, what's that like? I mean, how do you just get used to it in your career or what? Yeah,
I mean, you definitely get used to it, but it's funny. Like you never know which of these is going to affect you and which isn't. There's no rhyme or reason to it. You can become, sort of like numb to it and not think anything of it when you're dealing with these critical incidents, and then one can just kind of hit you different. I know for me personally, I think one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this is, I respond to fatal car accidents, fatal fires, and see these like, horrible scenes. But the one thing that really does stick with me and kind of eat me alive at times is drownings, because I so genuinely believe that these incidents are preventable.
Right. And
we should, as leaders in public safety, lifeguards, I mean, we should be doing everything we can to prevent these incidents. And I think one of the reasons is I love the beach so much. You talked about it having this spiritual effect on you. I get that day in and day out.
Yeah.
And I just hate the fact that something that brings me such joy
right.
can be so dangerous and, possibly life-ruining to other people.
Yeah. So we're coming on Labor Day weekend. This is going to be, this episode will be, air Labor Day weekend. Talk a little bit about the dichotomy of Labor Day weekend where, the kids go back to school, so there's less lifeguards, the water conditions, what people can expect, and also talk a little bit about, if you can, just sort of in a public service way, as to what people should do to kind of prevent this kind of thing in their own lives, and that kind of thing, a little public service stuff. But
Yeah, there's
'cause
plenty
we are
of
coming on Labor Day weekend. here.
Yeah, right. Labor Day weekend comes, so most of the beaches won't be staffing lifeguards anymore, but the weather stays beautiful, the water stays warm, and the beach can appear really inviting. But we also enter hurricane season, so there's the potential for, really strong rip currents, large surf, and people getting themselves in trouble. So it really is kind of like, it can be that recipe for disaster. So there's tons of public information out there on identifying a rip current and staying safe on the beach and how to navigate different currents in the ocean. So I just recommend everybody take a look at that and educate themselves before they go down, and maybe do your research. Find out what beaches are open with some sort of lifeguards on duty, and try to direct your stay to those beaches.
I think it's a good idea too for people, like if you walk out with the kids, to say hello to the lifeguard.
Yep.
And it's good to have your kid just introduce themselves to the lifeguard and be like, hey, look, and hey, he's this or that, and keep an eye on him.
I got to say, I don't remember if I've said this on camera, mic, or whatever before, but I had a situation lifeguarding one time where these two younger kids walked up onto the beach, and they walked up to me on the lifeguard stand. One guy goes to me, so is this the ocean? I said, yep. He goes, can we just go in? And I'm like, yep, up to your knees, buddy. Like,
Yeah.
It is. You just see it. Like, I had an after hours thing a month or so ago where I was surfing, and it was like 8 o'clock at night, and I came in, and there's all these kids swimming like up to their chins, barely do it. Their parents are wearing khakis, sitting on the beach watching. And I said to the parents, I was like, hey guys, just so you know, there's a big rip right there. And they were like, a drop off? And I was like, yeah, a drop off. And they're like, kids.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you just don't know. And it's a lot of what you're talking about, socioeconomic or whatever it may be. It's people that don't know the ocean going after hours. And especially now, like you're saying, Labor Day, that's coming and going. It's going to be unstaffed beaches, so it's the same thing.
Yeah, I think we all have a ton of stories where, we're just hanging out on the beach. We spend a lot of time down there on and off season, and pulling people out of the water just when we were down there hanging, surfing, whatever. It's like, I can't even say I have memorable stories from it. It's just a regular thing. Like when we're on the beach, we're constantly aware and looking, and when there's no lifeguards on duty, people get themselves in trouble.
It's so funny because I feel like surfers started out like in the 60s, 70s, and 80s in this area. They were the pot smokers, and bad reputation and all this. And then those original surfers got older and became doctors and not lawyers, but they became doctors, chiropractors, professionals. And then surfing became more accepted, and it wasn't anymore the long-haired pot smokers. It was everyone. But back in those days, they were sort of the outlaws and stuff, and there was a lot of tension and there was a lot of friction between municipalities and kicking surfers out of the water when the waves were great in the name of safety and all this. But what was always ironic about that, and what is funny, is that I think surfers are probably account for the most water rescues,
sure.
or
No doubt.
The water is a lot safer, and I think that's a good public service message. In my opinion, the water is a lot safer when there's surfers in the water, especially after hours.
Yeah, no doubt. I had one pretty memorable one, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago locally, where we get dispatched for swimmers in distress around like 7 p.m. And I was one of the first ones to the beach, and there was a surfer out there with an unresponsive female on his board.
Wow.
Yeah, and then there were a handful of other victims who were in the same rip, and but yeah, fully unresponsive. And I can tell you for a fact that if that surfer had not paddled over and got this woman on the board, she would 1,000% be dead.
Yeah.
She would have been a victim of a fatal drowning.
All right, so listen, I want to get back to the boats and the craft and the competition, but before we do that, can we just touch on umbrellas in the beach and windy days? And how that all works?
My wife's at the beach right now. I think we got an umbrella that it clips in, it screws in. There's a bag of sand that clips it down too. There's like 4 different mechanisms to hold the thing down because they are the worst.
So we settled the case. We settled the case. A woman sitting at the beach in so a woman's sitting at the beach in Seagirt, and an umbrella blows up, hits her in the face, right?
Yeah, basically ripped her cheek open.
Yeah.
She had a phenomenal plastic surgeon, but it essentially flayed her cheek open.
So we filed a lawsuit against the owner of the umbrella, and it was covered under the umbrella owner's homeowner's insurance, and there was a litigation, and Mark handled it, I believe, for the most part. ended up recovering about like 230,000.
I think it was 300,000. It was, as other attorney Jake and I worked on it, and I don't recall if we even had to file suit. Like a lot of times in these cases, you fight them. Excuse me, like tooth and nail. You'll take it down to the wire. You'll think it's this like clear cut thing, and they'll still take you to the mat. And yeah, this was one of the few where relatively early on they were like, "Hey, like our bad. What's the number?" And yeah, I believe the policy was 300,000.
And what was the negligence? What did the homeowner do wrong that required their insurance company to pay a settlement?
So it was a windy day.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't install their umbrella correctly. They probably had it, if I remember, they had it facing away where the wind could get underneath it. There were any number of things they could have done to make sure that this umbrella was more secure. Poor lady's just sitting there trying to enjoy a day at the beach with their family, and the thing takes off, and yeah, it ripped her cheek open. I'm sure you guys still see it too, but like I don't know if they've gotten better with it now. I see they've got like this screw-looking bottoms. But where I worked, we had these giant wooden umbrellas, and the wind at 2:30 switches to southeast, and these these young kids that would set the things up, like 12 years old, 13, or however young they were, setting the things up. The wind would switch, and all of a sudden it would just be like. Yeah,
they're spears.
They're absolutely, and they're heavy.
And those are deadly. They're literally just wooden spears. The umbrellas that you're
so
referring
what,
to.
So what stopped me from, and again, sorry, cut this part too. I used to always stop down at the beach where I lifeguard, and I'd hang out, I'd work out for a little bit. So one day I was there, and one of those umbrellas took off, and I just, instinctively jumped down, sprinted, grabbed it, stopped it, brought it back. And my old boss was there, and he's like, "Mark, we got to put you on the books if something's going to happen to you and all that."
Yeah.
And I was
God,
like,
give me a break.
Yeah, a little bit. But so, but yeah, it was just like, but those things, they're projectiles, they're nightmares. I don't know if you've seen the video or like the meme or whatever, where it's just like, go. And this like heavy metal rock music starts going, all these umbrellas are flying on the beach. But it's just nuts. Like, I guess that's my passion, being like,
chasing umbrellas.
Rant about these umbrellas.
Well, when I sit on the beach on a windy day, I make sure I'm not downwind of any umbrellas. I can't relax if I am.
100%. And I can't even relax if our own umbrella isn't so secured that I'm like, I have no fear about it. Like we were up there, I guess last weekend or whatever, Hurricane Aaron was coming through. And we didn't bring like the bag of sand. So I've got like 2 of the 3 things. And I was like, Aaron, where's the sand? So.
Yeah. So beach umbrellas. So I think, when people go down to the ocean, they look at the ocean, there's a fear. Ooh, I'm scared and stuff. Or, there's a, like, oh, surfing, it's dangerous, or a kayak. So I think a big part about lifeguarding and the training and the boats and the kayaks is it's sort of like commanding the ocean. My mother always taught me that if there's no waves or big waves or even a bathtub, you always have to have respect for the
100%.
ocean and water and drowning. But with that being said, I think the importance of, the surfboards for lifeguards, the longboards, the kayaks, and the boats is it's part of mastering your craft, and it instills a certain confidence in, your ability to manage the craft, to manage the water, while still having that respect for it,
And that's the word too. I feel like, because I don't know, fear. Sometimes you do have to fear the ocean, but like respect is really the word. It's the same thing. I remember like, never turn your back to the ocean and things like that. Like you have to, it humbles you so quickly. And it's the same thing with skiing, where like I'll fall or something and be like, what the heck? And then I'm like, wait, this mountain owes me nothing.
Yes.
Like I have to do this. I have to earn it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the ocean. Like if I don't get a wave, or if a wave slams me, I'm like, well, that's me. Like the ocean owes me nothing.
Well, it's kind of like shark attacks. Someone gets bitten by a shark or perhaps eaten by a shark, and they're like, well, you're in their territory, I'm not sure I agree with that one. Well, I'm entitled to be in the ocean too, what I mean? Like, but all right, so let's talk about the boats, because I think the reason it's important to have boats is because it's a safety device. It is a way to get out into the water. It is a lot more fitness than driving a jet ski. And, a jet ski can run out of gas or whatever. So talk about boats. Talk about the competition. Tell us about the JSRA. Tell us about like the USLA and the national competition and what it's all about. And do we just do boats from, June to mid-August, or is it something else? Tell us about this. And tell us about your passion for it and what you've done. Just so everyone knows, Jack is a national champion in rowing in terms of he was the national champion in the mixed division, right? The men and the women. And you took second place this year in the national championship rowing out in California in USLA. And also he did a 15-mile row, single row by himself in a boat that no one else has done around Cape May. So tell us about all this insanity that you do, you know?
Sure, yeah. Listen, I'm extremely passionate about it. We talked earlier about how this is, rowing is the foundation of lifeguarding.
Yeah.
Worldwide, period, end of story. I don't think you'll find anyone who will debate that. It all started with rowboats. So I think it's an extremely important part of our culture that it stays part of lifeguarding. But to your point, as far as them being useful tools, yeah, a boat will not fail.
Yeah.
Jet ski, I can think of a million different mechanical issues. I've had them myself personally while operating it in a rescue capacity. A boat will not fail. So I think they still have their place on the beach. I think they're still really useful for utility purposes and for making some of those low frequency, high risk event saves, whether it's like some sort of like boat fire or something where you need to get a lot of victims in floating somewhere, really fast. So they definitely have their place. All that being said, racing them is the best part.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's obviously pretty lifeguard
tell us
based.
the modern boats. When I first started lifeguarding, we had these Hankins boats. They were made by, I think it was Charlie Hankins.
Yep.
They were all these wood. I guess they were skiffs or dories.
Skiffs. Yeah, those are all skiffs. Yeah.
And these thing weighed about 600 pounds.
So I'll give my ACs, Van Dynes. That was what I knew back in the day.
Yeah,
And
so
then
you
the
had
self-bailers.
Yeah, so you had these Seabright skiffs we talked at length about at the beginning of the podcast, and then you had 3 boat builders come out and become kind of prominent. So the first one was, I want to say, like maybe the 1930s, maybe the 1920s. Van Dyne started, predominantly down in deep South Jersey, Cape May and Atlantic counties, and Van Dyne became...
So remember you had the rap wars between the East Coast and West Coast rappers? Is there something like that in terms of South Jersey and North Jersey rowing?
And what's the difference between the boat, like the advantages?
So just geographically, we've adopted different surf boats.
Yeah.
So you have down in South Jersey, Van Dyne came out, and it was rapidly adopted by Cape May and Atlantic County lifeguards. To this day, they're still, tons of Van Dynes on the beach. They use them for rescues, and they race them. And then sometime in the 1950s, you had Hankins start making boats. And very similar to the Van Dyne, but a little different. At the time, these are all wood boats. And then later on in the 80s now, you had Bob Acey start making boats. And we're still racing Aceys and Van Dynes to this day. However, Bob Acey made a far superior boat as far as speed, weight, and durability.
I think the beach I lifeguarded at disagrees and prefers the Van Dyne, but probably for its ability to hold a weight.
I'm not talking preference, right?
Yeah.
There are pros and cons to both. I personally own both a Van Dyne and an AC, and the Van Dyne is an absolute blast. Surfing that thing in waves, because it has a much narrower keel, it'll lock in. It won't get squirrely or sheer on a wave. So it definitely has its benefits over the AC. Bob Acey made a flat bottom boat with a wider keel, and it just naturally, due to design and construction, became faster. But South Jersey maintained allegiance to Van Dyne, and Monmouth and some of Ocean County transitioned to rowing the AC boats, and Bob made the boats right here in Monmouth County, and then they were adopted nationally as well, because when you're racing nationally, it's all about having the fastest boat. So that's what we're racing now.
Is there, when you race nationally, is there anything like everyone needs to use an AC or a Van Dyne, or is it you bring your own boat, whatever you got?
So the rules are just it needs to be there's a maximum length, so it can't be over 19 feet?
19, I think.
So it can't be longer than 19 feet, and it has to be at least 300 pounds. So as long as, and there might be some other little quirks in there too, but those are the 2 big things: maximum length and minimum weight.
Okay.
So there's a number of boats that meet that. So when we go out on the West Coast, they row boats called dories. So there were Pacific dories and shock dories that were made predominantly out on the West Coast in California. And again, pros and cons. Those things have their benefits in bigger surf. They're going to get over waves a lot better and faster than the ACs that we row. So just a different kind of boat. But when it comes to anything under, I don't know, I'd say like 4 to 6 foot waves, I don't think anything's going to match a self-bailing AC surf boat.
So
as
tell
far
us
as
about
speed.
the self-bailing. Whenever we roll up with our boats, inevitably a bystander will say, "What are the holes for?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how does this not sink?"
Yeah,
Right,
why's
so
that
tell
boat
us-
got all them holes in it?
Tell us what that technology is.
Yeah, so self-bailing's a pretty cool concept or technology, I guess you could say, in these surf boats. The boats have a false bottom. So when you're looking at the boat, the part of the deck that you'd walk on, there's actually a large amount of space under there that's just filled with air. So it's not actually the bottom of the boat. So that allows the boat to float and sit a little bit higher above the water. So right above that deck, they're called scuppers, which are a bunch of little holes actually in the boat. The whole point is when you're rowing in and out of surf and you're taking waves over the bow and the boat's filling with water, the water will self-bail and exit the boat on its own as you continue racing and won't take on any water.
I learned something today. I didn't know they had the false bottom. I thought it was just some physics design that it goes out but not in.
Yeah.
Because the older ACs, they call them the short boats and the Van Dynes. If you go out in the surf and a wave crashes on it, well, now your boat just filled with water and you can't move. And so they have the self-bailers.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, the self-bailers, because of that false bottom, they're not great for making rescues. They're really just for racing because they're a little bit more tippy. You got to keep your weight centered. So you won't see anything really self-bailing in a rescue capacity. You'll actually see those closed-off boats, and if you do take on water, that water's staying there until you get it on shore and dump it.
All right, so what do? You just row in June to August when they take the boats off the beach, and then you're done, or what? Or is it something
No, I know.
Your
He's- I
Instagram
know.
says otherwise.
He's asking questions he knows the answer to because I know you're right out there with me.
Yeah.
No, we train and race year-round up here in Jersey in all elements and everything that comes with it. So we do, we think it's awesome to do snow rows. We'll row at the inlet in nor'easters in the middle of February. And we put together some holiday races. So we'll race on Thanksgiving, around Christmas. We did a Valentine's Day row this year. And the guys get together and something really cool that I think happened at Nationals this past year. So we went out to California, massive 6 to 8 foot surf, definitely some 10-foot faces on set those first 2 days. And all the rowers were really, we were frothing, right? Overwhelmingly, we wanted to race. We couldn't get into the water. And as much as I hate to admit it, unfortunately, day one, it probably was not safe to do so. So the officials, they gather us all up. And I'll never forget, the head official has us all, circled up. And you could tell he was
this is
like
at the USLA Nationals in Huntington
Championships.
Beach, California, this past August.
Yep.
So
Go
you
ahead.
got Hawaii, California,
The whole
Florida,
country.
all over.
Yep, you have some exhibitionists from Australia, New Zealand. So it's all the best, fastest lifeguards in the country and some in the world in some cases. So we're all gathered up now, the best rowers in the country. And you could tell the official's just dreading having to make this announcement. He looks up at us, he looks around, and he goes, "All right, guys, before I get into this, I just want you to know I recognize that you are all the most passionate athletes here when it comes to your craft." Like he just didn't want to tell us that it was postponed, right? Like listen, it's not safe for you guys to race. We have to take safety into consideration. Our safety coordinator's telling us that we need to postpone this today. We did end up racing in pretty huge epic surf, but on that first day, they had to postpone it. And it's just, everyone knows, like, you cannot rival the rower's passion. No one else shares that. The swimmers, the paddlers, the surf skiers, like, no one has that element of, like, camaraderie and just, like, the passion for it. It's unmatched.
And you've said, too, Jack, it's almost like a soap opera sometimes within the rowing community where, like, one rowing partner will be like, "Oh, I heard he's thinking about rowing with this guy instead. Like, this guy's getting better." Can you talk about that,
To get on the podium at national championships, you have to find a partner who will train with you all year in any conditions and drop everything to make sure you attend these races, get that experience, and train. Period. End of story. So, yeah, when you're in that sort of confined space with one other person who's equally passionate about the craft as you are, the personalities come out, and the social element is definitely interesting.
We were joking before. It's like Jack was saying, like, it's tougher than a marriage, like, in some ways. And we're like, you can picture just being in a boat and someone's like, and you're like, "What do you mean, huh?" Like, I'm pulling more than you are. It's like, I'm pulling more. And it's just turning into.
Yeah. I mean, we had an incident, I think last summer or 2 summers ago. My partner, my regular rowing partner, is also involved in emergency service. We work shift work. So, we can be called into work at the drop of a hat, and we work an interesting schedule. So it was like the second or third race of the season, and he had to go into work. So it was kind of like last minute, like, "Hey, I can't row with you tonight." And my girlfriend says to me, like, what are you doing rowing with this guy? It's the third time he's bailed on you this summer. And I snapped so fast. I was like, he works shift work. We train all year for this. You don't know what it's like. So, yeah, it was like sort of that just like blind defense, like, no one understands. Unless you're in there doing it, training for this, like, you don't understand.
You're always thinking about your job.
Yeah.
We're supposed to go rowing.
Yeah.
So my son said to me, he said when we were at the break from the podcast that he goes, you should have done it in a Speedo. The podcast at a Speedo. So what's the whole Speedo deal, and why at some of these rowing events do we see lifeguard butts running around, male butts running around? What's that all about?
It's such a shame. I feel like the sport would have such wider appeal if it weren't for the the uniform.
The uniform.
But so when we actually race and surf, obviously the boat is getting rocked around, and we race on these sort of like scooped long plastic seats. And when we row the boats, it's pretty relying on leg drive. So you actually, you have to be able to drive and slide on your butt when you're driving with your legs to get like a full hard stroke. And when you're going in and out of surf and sloshing back and forth, it's not like a crew boat where you can have this sort of seat on wheels, because you're going to be sliding, both forward and backwards, but also left and right, accounting for wind, shifting your weight when you're on a wave. So you have to, you have to row on one of these hard plastic seats, and you got to go bare skin so that you can facilitate that slide.
Because if you just did a bathing suit, it just doesn't work.
It wouldn't work. You wouldn't be able to drive your stroke. You wouldn't be able to shift your weight. You'd be putting yourself in an immediate disadvantage. You wouldn't even be competitive.
And not just that, you got the inseam and the bathing suit that could do some damage if you're sliding back and forth for, you know.
So yeah, you got to throw a Speedo on and do the thing.
So that technology thing, it's because if now in the winter, when you row in the winter, you do have the crew seats. You can swap out the seats when you're just on flat water and you're enclosed.
Yeah, we throw in the crew seats. It's just a seat on a track with wheels, and we modify what you'll find in like a crew boat or a crew shell. But it's all the same equipment, and we're not really going in and out of surf when we're racing in the winter for obvious reasons. More flat water training.
What's your feeling with the row machine? Are you like a runner that would hate to be on a treadmill? Are you like, don't ever get me on a rowing machine, I just want to be out in the ocean?
Yeah, that thing's a total death contraption. I mean, it is miserable. I say it all the time. I'd rather go get in a boat and row 10 miles before I rode 1,600 meters on an erg. It's just pure misery for me. That said, it is really beneficial to get on that and train, and you can actually, kind of hone in certain muscle groups and watch your splits and work on your stroke rate and everything else. But man, that thing is pure misery.
So tell us about the this row. I wore this shirt, the Around the Cape paddle. Tell us about this, what this is about, what it's for, and what you've done with it.
Yeah, so the Around the Cape paddle put on by the Desatnik Foundation, and it's a great event, but it also goes to a great cause. This whole podcast, I think it's evident how passionate we are about the ocean and enjoying the surf and everything else. And, not everyone is able to do that, in this case due to a spinal cord injury. So the Desatnik Foundation, they raise a ton of money. They host this and a bunch of other good events throughout the year. And we go down and we do this Around the Cape row, 15 miles around Cape May, which probably a lot of people don't know is actually an island. That was new to me when I first went down and did that race. But so we raise a ton of money. And our group, you included, have been the top fundraisers for, I want to say, like 3 or 4 years in a row now, which is really important to us, more so than winning the race. And we raise a ton of money for the Desatnik Foundation. That money goes right back into people who have these sort of spinal cord injuries being able to enjoy the beach, whether it's beach wheelchairs or just, programs for therapy, surf events so that you can get disabled people out there and, enjoying surfing and enjoying the ocean.
So what do you got to do to row 15 miles? That's not easy, and you're sweating. Like, tell us how you do that to prevent dehydration and why that's a problem with rowing. What does dehydration do when you're rowing, and how does it actually translate to your body? What do you feel if you're dehydrated doing a long 5, 10, or 15-mile row, and how do you prevent that?
Yeah, so rowing in general, it's a full body exercise, and you're using all your biggest muscle groups, your legs, your back, and so if you don't properly hydrate or get the right nutrition for that event, you're going to seize up, and there's no faking it. Like you'll lose your legs first, and then you'll just start throwing your back into it. Then you'll lose your back. You'll have to row with just your arms. Then you're not moving the boat, and then you'll crap out. So this Cape to Cape row, we've had a lot of or a handful of rowers who've kind of crapped out. Tremendous athletes. I mean, it's just if you don't prepare for it, it doesn't matter how hard you train or how good of an athlete you are. If you're not hydrated or you didn't take the right nutrition that night and that day, you'll crap out and you'll fail. So it's a really, really tough race.
There's such a technique to it too, because you showed a picture before, a row that Jerry and I had done together. I remember getting to the end of that thing, and my forearms were just burning. I'm like, oh. And it's such a technique where you're saying, if you're inexperienced, your first thought is I'm rowing. It should just be like my arms, but it's the legs driving. It's all those other muscle groups, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's full body, and you want to do as much as you can with those big, strong muscle groups. So yeah, newer, inexperienced rowers will usually be all arms, and you're just not going to generate any power. You're going to burn out really fast, and then as you get better, you obviously learn the proper technique and stroke and everything else.
And to Jerry's point too, and I keep jumping in front of him, but like, what do you do to hydrate? Are you like mid 15-mile row and you drop the oars and you take a drink of something? Or
yeah, we've developed this crazy system. There's a device called the nasal cannula. So if you ever see a patient in like a hospital or something on oxygen when they have the tube up their nose, so we've actually taken that and then we'll modify it a little bit, actually string it up over our ears and put the holes in our mouth, and then put the other end of the tube into some sort of jug with some sort of nutrition, hydration element, like liquid carbohydrates or powdered carbohydrates with some sugar and stuff, whatever blend works for you as an endurance athlete. And you'll just be sucking that down the whole time, just little sips as you're rowing.
So if I was to watch you do this row, you're going by and you have this like gas mask looking thing going on with tubes?
Not the whole gas mask, but the tubes all looped up in the mouth. And not everyone does that, but it's become, I think, pretty popular. And you've done this race a handful of times. You did it with your daughter, right?
Yeah.
So
it's
my
daughter and my son.
Yeah,
Awesome.
It's epic.
But it's if you don't hydrate properly, your muscles will absolutely seize up. Like your legs will, your quads, your calves, arms, and so you have to actually. When I did it, I had a gallon of electrolytes. Some people like putting pickle juice in it, and you're just sipping the whole time. And if you don't, you'll be in trouble. And there's been people in rows. There was one, they did a 20-mile row at the Jersey Shore many years ago, and one dude almost didn't make it, died almost.
What's the starts with an R?
Rhabdo.
Yes.
Yeah.
That you can get if you overwork your body too quickly or something.
Yeah, and it can be fatal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a lack of hydration and. Yeah, your body starts to shut down. Scary stuff.
So, Jack, give me a little of your Goggins-ness, your David Goggins-ness. Like, how do you do this? Like, how do you get up? I think you row with your partner like 5:30 in the morning a lot. When it's 30 degrees out, you do these 15-mile rows. And by the way, these USA LA rows, like out in California, they are grueling. It's only 3 laps, but it's a grueling 3 laps. It could be hot. So, what keeps you motivated?
And you've done an Ironman too. Like you probably know. Or was it the Tennessee?
Yeah, Chattanooga. We did, Chattanooga Iron. I wish I could say something cool and give like some really cool, like motivational speech about just getting out there and do hard things. What it really comes down to is my partner's got 3 little kids. And if we're not in the water, in the boat, starting our workout by 4:45 in the morning, we're not getting the workout in. Yeah. And we're both really passionate about wanting to win national championships. So that's what we do, 2 or 3 days a week. We're in the water 4:45 before the sun comes up, duct taping a flashlight to the bow of my boat because we've almost been hit by so many fishing boats in the pitch blackness. Yeah. So, it's just that's the real reason. That being said, having a partner who's equally motivated as you makes it a lot easier to get up out of bed when it's 10 degrees in the middle of February and you're not going to see the sun for 4 hours. And knowing that they're going to be in the parking lot waiting for you to get in that boat, you can't let them down. And I know that my partner would probably say the same thing, like, well, he's going to be there. I got to get there. It's really easy to talk yourself out of getting out of bed and getting that workout in when you're the only voice in your head.
All BS aside, that how good do you feel too at your day? Like you've already checked that box for your day. Are you kidding me?
So most mornings I'm always working out in the morning. The row is a little bit early, but I'll be in the gym at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. But that sort of that added benefit of actually being on open water in the boat, it goes so beyond physical fitness. Yes, I mean, there's something to be said for being on open ocean to start your day. It just goes way further than getting a good workout in the gym. And I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost spiritual. We've been out there in the mornings. A group of us will go out, maybe 5 boats, 6 boats, and we'll row, and we'll go, out an inlet and go along the coast. And some mornings are cold as hell and windy and raining. Other mornings are crisp, maybe 50 degrees, 40 degrees, and we'll see like seals out there. And it's just like you said, it's just indescribable.
Yeah.
But this is open. We should talk a little bit about the JSRA and stuff. Like this is accessible to a lot of people. Like we've had a lot of people come in the group recently, older guys. Some people started rowing in their 50s. We've had young people come in. The boats are accessible. So talk a little bit about that, and then we'll put in the show notes, we'll put the links and stuff so people can get involved and do this.
Sure, yeah. So the Jersey Shore Rowing Association, it's a group of really passionate rowers from the Jersey Shore.
Sometimes too passionate, but keep
Sometimes
going.
too passionate. And, the traditional pipeline is definitely lifeguarding.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of guys and girls who've never lifeguarded and just kind of fell in love with surfboat rowing. And as passionate as we are about the actual sport and competition, we're probably equally passionate about getting more people involved and getting in the boat and teaching I wouldn't even say the next generation, because there's really no age limit on this sport.
Right.
You stay competitive well through your 50s and into your 60s. I mean, we're talking top 10 boats
Talk about
at national
Dave
championships.
Healy real quick at the Cape to Cape. What was it, 2 years ago or 3 years ago? Remember he rode? I think he came in first or second place, and he's in his 60s.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Healy in his 60s, still out there. He has national record times on the erg. I mean, just an absolute freak of an athlete.
He's in his 60s.
Yeah,
Wow.
but not just him. I mean, your rowing partner this year at national championships, Dane DeBoer. I mean, absolutely legendary rower. And, right in the mix. I mean, you guys got on a bomb wave and had kind of a tragic ending to the race. But up until that point, you guys were a top 10 boat at national championships.
Well, listen, Jack, listen, you got to send it. That's my view. So
Go for broke.
So listen, you and I rode, we did we rode together representing Spring Lake in the Ocean Grove Lifeguard Tournament this summer. We were the first event, and it was about a mile row or so.
Yeah, and howling southeast.
Yeah, tell us.
Real.
You were the bow man. What I love about Jack, here's the thing about Jack, and what I've learned from Jack is in rowing and in many things in life, you can overthink it. And he doesn't overthink stuff. One time last year in Texas, he's rowing in the Nationals, and I think it was he was in the finals, and he's rowing, and it's like grueling. Like it's hot as hell. It's a humid 90 degrees in Texas, flat water. There's probably flies. And he comes in, it's like the second leg. And what you do is like you come in, you land the boat, your partner has to jump out, run up the berm and the beach and run back down, spin the boat around and go around and do another 2 legs. And his partner jumps out, Jack's at the bow. He's got this look on his face like people are yelling and screaming next to him. And he's just like looking like all relaxed, just keeping it simple, throws it out there. And he keeps it simple.
Yeah.
I don't know where that was going or where that started from, but
you midway through it got me thinking. We were skiing out in Colorado and took like a little T-lift up to some like back side of the mountain thing.
Yeah.
We're going down, not seeing anyone for like 20 minutes, and we get to like this, basically 2 cliffs and a little chute. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know. Jack's like, just go. He just drops it, and I'm like, all right, I guess we're going. And
Corbett's Jr.
yeah, pretty much.
Corbett's Canyon.
You're talking about your guys' competition you were doing together, and like just his calm demeanor and like.
I would say your best races. It's cool. I just watched a documentary about Olympic sprinters, and I think it applies here. Your best races, you don't have to feel good to row well. And I think that your best races, at the end of it, you feel like, I didn't really think much about it. It just happened.
Yes.
So I try to don't overthink it. Just go. So like that race that you're talking about was the one pretty long row. It was howling southeast. So it was super choppy.
Yeah.
And you couldn't see the buoy. So we were rowing out to sea around a buoy and then coming back in. And it was just so choppy that you couldn't see over the surf where the buoy was. So I went down the beach. I looked at where the buoy was. I went back. There was no way to tell. I was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just row kind of direct into the wind.
Yeah.
And when we get to where the buoy should be, when we see it, we'll adjust. We'll just, don't even think about it.
Yeah.
I don't think I looked behind me once when I was steering that boat. Just put us on a course that I thought looked decent.
Yeah.
And just, like you said, just went for it.
Yeah.
Lucked out. I've had a lot of awful races where I did that. I'm talking about one where it worked out.
Yeah.
But it just worked out for us. And we rounded that buoy. We came in. We caught a sick wave. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And I think you can agree. Like looking back, like I I don't know, we just rode. Like it just felt good.
And
We
I've
just
learned
rode.
that from you, and it's important to keep it simple. I've learned that in life because there's a lot of psychology to competition.
Yeah.
You can psych yourself out. Like in rowing, you could psych yourself out and be tired like almost right away because you've psychologically winded yourself. But we won the race, and we going in, and I'm in the stern, Jack's in the bow. The bow man, when you're rowing, basically steers the boat, gives the command, says give a little right, little left, pulling more on the oar. And we're sitting there. I said, all right, Jack, we're waiting. We're going to get a wave. So we hung out, and a set came, and I go, let's fucking go, you know? And I sea anchored, and that was great. And then so you win some and you lose some, and then and then we were in California, and I'm rowing with Dane, my partner, and the surf was literally like, well, that weekend or during that week, it was like 6 to 10 foot faces. When the race actually happened, the surf had subsided, and then we were in a dory boat, and a dory boat is better popping over waves, but the AC boats are faster in flat water. So we were leading, my partner and I were leading the race for the dory boats, and we were on the last leg, and because the dory boats are all slower, and there was really not much swell during that particular heat. There was a couple waves to pop over, but not that much. So then I see this wave coming, and I'm like, let's fucking go. We're going. And my partner's like, no, wait. And this is our first time rowing together. We just met each other a couple days before, and he's like, no, we're going to wait. And I'm like, no, we're going to go. And so I'm pulling, and he stops rowing. And so we took this wave and just like, we didn't have enough speed, so we went down and just crashed, burned, and flipped. And the type of guy Jack is, he came in second place. He's like there, and he swims out. One of the few guys that swam out to help us flip the boat back over and kind of rescue us, which tells you the type of guy he is. So sometimes you crash and burn, but sometimes you win sending it. But then it was good because we came back on Monday and we did the local tournament, and it was the Manasquan Lifeguard tournament. And our team ended up winning that. And there's a real cool wave. I did, I don't like to talk about myself that much, but this one's worth
Front page of the newspaper, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we were going over
this
in the Speedo, exactly. And they pushed it out and in the leg, and it was stand up, and it was solo. And the boat is literally vertical. It's a really cool picture. We won that. So, hey, you win some, you lose some, and you just got to send it. That's
well, it's
what
like we talked about at the beginning, like why we love this and that X factor of the ocean. Like the best rower isn't going to win every race. Yeah. Because some of these other factors can alter that one way or the other. And win some, lose some. You know, you're a great rower, you train all year for this. Bad break on a wave at nationals, but then you come home and get like this epic like photo of a career lifeguarding, you know, like highlight of your lifeguarding career picture at the front of the newspaper.
Yeah,
it's cool.
It was sick. So the JSRA, the Jersey Shore Rowing Association, people can contact them if they want. They do some clinical rows where they'll teach people how to row, introduce them to the boats. Yeah, they can probably find them a partner for some races or some relaxed rows. It's JSRA.com. Yeah, there's a website. You can just Google Jersey Shore Rowing Association. There's a pretty strong social media presence. If you want to check out the Instagram, shoot that a DM. There's an email address. It's on the website. And I mean, we'll get anyone into rowing, lifeguard or not. If it's just something that you think you're interested in, being an athlete, being out on the ocean, we'd love to get you in the boat. Cool. And you've done some trainings too, right? For different community groups, training them in water safety and things like that, right?
FDIC.
Oh, yeah. That's just like water rescue in general. I'm a firm believer that every emergency service discipline should have some baseline water rescue training. And, being kind of passionate about that, I found myself at the police academy teaching every single police recruit who goes through our county police academy gets some baseline water rescue training. And then we have another class we do in the summers for any in-service training police officer who wants to come and get some exposure to the ocean. We'll run them through a class. And then on the fire side, going out to FDIC in Indianapolis the last couple of years. It's the largest training conference for firefighters in the world. And we do a hands-on training water rescue class out there as well that has been really well received. So, any opportunity I get, I think it's really important. I'm, again, firm believer. I'm very passionate and opinionated about water rescue, but, to have an opinion, I think you got to be making an effort to kind of put your money where your mouth is. So, I'm really passionate about the water rescue training stuff as well.
Awesome.
No, that's it.
Do we hit everything, Mark? Do we need to talk about whales or dolphins or anything?
I think
umbrellas, needles on the beach,
red tides. We hit that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we're good. Jack, I was cracking up. I looked at your LinkedIn. I was like, you haven't even bothered to update this because if you did, it would just be nonstop.
I got a job.
So,
I'm good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so that's awesome.
Cool.
Just tell everyone out there, be safe, right? And be smart in the water.
Absolutely. Check in with your lifeguards and, when in doubt, don't go out. And, that's it.
Or
Enjoy
just
the rest of
send
summer.
Or send
Or
it.
just send it.
Or go
Yeah,
for broke and
somewhere in
send it.
between.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. That was awesome, Jack.
thanks.
So much fun.